The stars were quiet that night, but not for long. Far beyond the edge of Earth's orbit, something new was coming. A soft glow appeared in the dark, not like the sharp light of rockets or satellites, but more like a slow pulse, like a heartbeat in space. It was the arrival of the Klesar. They had been traveling for hundreds of years, floating through the cold silence between stars. Their ship looked like a giant spiral shell made of light and glass. Inside, the air was thick with glowing threads that moved like jellyfish. They were peaceful beings, tall and soft with no solid shape, just drifting forms that shimmered with color when they spoke. On Earth, scientists watched the approach with awe and fear. The United Nations Space Agency sent a small crew to meet them. The ship chosen for this mission was the USS Halcyon, a mid-sized vessel built for research, not war. Aboard her were a few brave souls. Dr. Lisa Morrow, a linguist who had studied alien languages for years. Ben Harlow, a quiet young man with a gift for numbers, and a small team of engineers and pilots. As the Halcyon drew closer, the Klesar made contact not with words, but with patterns. Strange symbols blinked across, the radio waves, shapes, angles, and sequences that repeated in ways humans had never seen before. It was not just language. It was math, but math unlike anything on Earth. Lisa worked hard to understand the symbols while Ben stared at the numbers behind them. He saw something others didn't, a rhythm, a kind of music hidden in the logic. The Klesar, too, seemed to be waiting for someone to hear it. After days of trying to communicate, one of the Klesar leaders finally stepped forward. His name, translated loosely, was Thren. He floated close to the screen and shared something big, a massive complex equation that stretched across the screen like a web of stars. He told them that his people had spent generations trying to solve it. Many had tried, none had succeeded. It was more than just a puzzle. It was a key, though, to what? Even the Klesar weren't sure. Ben looked at the screen, eyes wide. He didn't know it yet, but this moment would change everything. For now, all he knew was that somewhere in those numbers, there was a truth waiting to be found. The USS Halcyon floated near the glowing Klesar ship like a small bird next to a whale. The humans were still trying to understand what had just been shown to them, that long, twisting math problem stretching across the screen. It looked alive, shifting slightly as if it wanted to be solved. Ben Harlow stared at the numbers. He didn't know why, but something about the way they moved felt familiar. It was like seeing a song you've heard before but couldn't place. Lisa Morrow sat beside him, flipping through notes she had taken during the meeting with Thren, the Klesar leader. They say this has been worked on for hundreds of years, she said quietly. Entire lifetimes spent trying to find the answer. Maybe they're looking at it wrong, Ben replied, not taking his eyes off the screen. The Klesar offered the humans access to their knowledge. They called it the Living Archive, a kind of coral-like structure inside their ship that stored thoughts, memories, and math. It pulsed with light and color, almost like it was breathing. A small team from the Halcyon boarded the alien vessel. Everything felt soft and strange. The walls shimmered. The floor gave slightly underfoot. It was like walking inside a dream made of water and light. Ben was drawn to the archive. He touched it gently, and images filled his mind. Not words or sounds, but shapes and patterns. He saw how the Klesar thought, how they built their math like a dance of symbols. He started sketching the patterns on his tablet. Some of them matched parts of the big equation. Others were new. He began rearranging them, testing ideas. Sometimes he hummed while he worked, matching tones to the rhythm of the symbols. Lisa watched him, amazed. "You're speaking their language," she whispered. "Not exactly," he said, "but I'm starting to hear it." Days passed. The rest of the crew tried to help, but most of them couldn't follow the logic. Even the smartest scientists were lost in the math. Only Ben seemed to get close. One night, alone in his cabin, he played with a sequence over and over. He turned it into sound, a series of tones that rose and fell like a melody. When he listened, something clicked. It wasn't just a problem. It was a pattern that changed over time. And for the first time, Someone on the Halcyon saw what the Clisser had missed. Ben could not stop thinking about the sound he had made from the numbers. It was more than noise. It was something alive. He played it again and again, watching how the tones moved together like dancers. Then he tried changing one part of the sequence. The whole thing shifted. He ran to Lisa with his tablet, eyes wide. "It's not just math," he said. "It moves. It changes." Lisa looked at what he had done. She did not understand all of it, but she saw that Ben was seeing something new. While the Clisar had built their math like a tower, Ben was treating it like a river, always flowing, never still. They went back to the archive and pulled more patterns. Ben rewrote parts of the equation using symbols that could shift over time. This was different from anything humans or Clisar had ever tried before. Where the Clisar saw fixed shapes, Ben saw motion. The next day, Thren came to check on them. He floated into the room like a soft cloud, his colors shifting slowly. When he saw what Ben had done, he paused. "This is not how we think," Thren said. "Our minds do not see change in this way." "Maybe that's why you couldn't solve it," Ben replied. Thren did not say yes or no. He only watched the screen as the symbols danced and changed. After a long silence, he left without another word. Ben kept working. He started building a model of the equation using waveforms and movement. He used the ship's simulation system to show how the problem behaved when treated like music or wind. The results were strange and beautiful. Lines twisted into loops. Numbers rose and fell like waves, and for the first time the equation seemed to breathe. Lisa sent a report to the rest of the crew. Some understood. Most did not. Even the smartest scientists aboard the Halcyon were stuck in old ways of thinking. They tried to force the problem into boxes, but Ben had opened the door to something wilder. A message came from the Clisser Council. They wanted to see Ben's work, not just a summary and a full demonstration. They would broadcast it across space to their home world. Ben felt nervous, but not scared. He knew he had found something real. He didn't yet know what it meant, but he could feel it, like holding a key that fit a lock no one had seen before. As he prepared his presentation, he looked out the window of the Halcyon, past the glowing shape of the Clisser ship, into the deep dark of space. Somewhere out there, other minds might be waiting, listening, and maybe, just maybe, they were ready to hear something new. The day of the demonstration arrived. The USS Halcyon buzzed with quiet tension. Crew members moved carefully, speaking in low voices as if not to break the moment. Ben Harlow sat at his station, hands steady but heart-pounding. This was not just about proving a new idea. It was about showing an entire alien species that there was another way to see the universe. In the main lab, a large screen glowed softly. The Clisser had linked their systems to the Halcyon, and soon millions of them would be watching. Thren floated near the screen, his jellyfish-like form pulsing gently. He gave no sign of support or doubt, only silence. Ben took a deep breath and started the simulation. The symbols from the great equation appeared, long and tangled like distant stars. Then, slowly, they began to move. Not in a random way, but with rhythm, shifting according to the dynamic patterns Ben had discovered. Gasps came from some of the humans in the room. Lisa Morrow leaned forward, eyes wide. She could see what was happening. The equation wasn't breaking down, it was coming alive. This is not how we designed it, Thren said, his colors flickering fast. Ben nodded. I know, I changed it. The symbols continued to shift and dance. Where the Clisar had tried for centuries to force the problem into a fixed shape, Ben had let it evolve. The result was stunning. Parts of the equation that once led to dead ends now opened into new paths. But not all the Clisar were pleased. Some in the council sent messages filled with doubt. One elder called Vaith sent a direct reply. This is not math. This is chaos. Ben read the message and frowned, but Lisa placed a hand on his shoulder. They're scared, she said. You made something they never thought possible. The debate among the Clisar grew louder. Some saw beauty in Ben's work. Others feared it was wrong, even dangerous. The argument stretched across frequencies and time zones on their homeworld. Back, on the Halcyon E, the crew waited. Some believed Ben had done something historic. Others worried he had gone too far. Even Lisa, who had supported him all along, wondered if the Kleiser might be right to hesitate. But Ben kept working. He knew the equation wasn't fully solved yet. He had found movement, yes, but something still felt missing. Like a song that had found its rhythm but not its final note. As the stars passed silently outside the ship's window, Ben stared at the glowing screen, deep in thought. He was close. Very close. Ben could not stop thinking about what was missing. The equation moved now, flowed like wind or water, but it still did not feel whole. Something at its heart remained hidden. He sat alone in his cabin, eyes tired, but mind sharp. The screen, in front of him, showed the latest version of the problem. Symbols danced, shifted, and reformed, all thanks to the new way he had built it. But there was a gap. A final piece that no one, not even the Kleiser, had ever seen. He went back through his notes. He looked at every symbol, every rhythm, every sound he had made from the math. Then, late at night, something clicked. Entropy. Not as a fixed number, but as a force that changed over time. The Kleiser had treated it like a wall, something solid and unchanging. Ben saw it differently. Entropy was not a wall. It was a door. His hands flew across the keyboard. He rewrote part of the equation, adding entropy not as a value but as a variable, something that grew, shifted, and responded. He hit enter. The screen blinked. Then slowly, the entire pattern changed. Lines that had once twisted into dead ends now opened into clear paths. Shapes that had fought each other suddenly lined up. The equation, for the first time in hundreds of years, began to settle. Ben's breath caught in his throat. It was working. He called Lisa, who came running. When she saw the screen, she gasped. You found it," she whispered. They sent the results to the rest of the Halcyon. Some didn't understand. Others stared in silence. Even the Kleiser, watching through their link, paused in shock. Thren arrived in person. He floated into the room and looked at the screen. His colors flickered fast, then slow. After a long moment, he spoke. This changes everything." The message spread quickly. The great equation, the one that had shaped generations of Kleiser thought, was no longer unsolved. A human had done what none of them could. But the surprise was not just in the solving. It was in what the answer revealed. As the full form of the equation settled into place, the symbols stopped moving. They formed a shape, not random, but structured, almost like a map or a message. Lisa stared at it. "This isn't just math," she said. "This is something else." Ben nodded slowly. Maybe it never was just about numbers. Outside the window, the stars were quiet, but somewhere out there, something had been waiting, and now someone had answered. The USS Halcyon floated silently near the glowing Kleiser ship. Inside, the air felt different, heavier, like the moment after a storm. The great equation had been solved, but no one knew what to do with the answer. Thren stayed close to the screen, his colors slow and deep. He did not speak for a long time. When he finally did, his voice was soft. "You have changed our path." Ben Harlow didn't know how to respond. He had only followed a pattern, heard a rhythm others had missed. Now, that small step had shaken something huge. Word spread quickly among the Kleiser. Some called Ben a genius. Others were afraid. The equation had guided their people for centuries. It had shaped their science, their beliefs, even their way of thinking, and now it had been rewritten by a young man from Earth. A message came from the Kleiser Council. They wanted to honor Ben, not as a guest or a friend, but as something more. They gave him a title, Thought Shaper. It was a name given only to those who changed the way a species saw the universe. Ben didn't ask for the title. He wasn't sure he wanted it, but he accepted it quietly. knowing it meant something to the Clisser. Back on Earth, the news caused debate. Scientists were amazed. Politicians worried. If this equation had been so important to the Clisser, what did it mean for humanity? Should the knowledge be shared? Kept secret? Daughter Lisa Morrow returned home first. She wrote a paper about how different minds could see the same problem in new ways. Her work became famous. She spoke at universities, met world leaders, and tried to explain what had happened in space. Ben went home too, but quietly. He didn't want fame. He didn't give speeches or meet with officials. Instead, he taught math at a small college and helped students find patterns in numbers. But life didn't stay quiet for long. The Clisser wanted to keep working with humanity. They offered to share more of their knowledge, but with a warning. Not all truths are safe. Not all tools are kind. Ben agreed. He knew that solving a problem was one thing. Knowing what to do with the answer was another. Years passed. The stars remained distant, but the gap between humans and the Clisser grew smaller. And somewhere out there, beyond the reach of ships and signals, the message from the equation still traveled, waiting for someone else to listen. Years passed. Ben Harlow lived quietly, teaching young minds at a small college far from the noise of big cities. He rarely spoke about what had happened in space. But in classrooms and late-night study sessions, his students noticed something. He saw patterns where others saw only numbers. Meanwhile, humanity began to change. With help from the Clisser, new energy sources were discovered. Ships could travel farther, faster. People started talking not just about exploring space, but living in it. The solved equation was more than math. It was a key, and once the lock turned, doors opened that had been closed for centuries. Scientists built machines based on its design. They found ways to send messages faster than light. They even made small fields where time moved slower, not enough to break time itself, but enough to dream. Ben never asked for credit. He didn't want money or fame. But when leaders met to talk about space law or alien contact, his name came up often. Then one day a new signal arrived. It did not come from the Clisser. It came from farther out, deeper in space, beyond even the oldest stars humans had mapped. The message was simple. A solution has been found. Attached was a version of the same ancient equation, but now it had changed. Someone else had taken it further. The world stopped for a moment, not in fear, but in wonder. Humanity had spent centuries looking up at the stars, hoping to be seen. Now, someone was writing back. Lisa Morrow joined the team, trying to decode the new message. She worked with both humans and Clisser, building bridges between species. She often thought back to that night on the USS Halcyon, when a quiet young man found music in numbers. Today, Ben watched the news like everyone else. He sat outside, on the steps of his home, looking up at the sky. Planes flew overhead. Satellites blinked in the dark. He smiled a little. The universe had always been speaking, in symbols and silence. Humanity had finally learned how to listen. And somewhere, far, beyond the stars, the next question was waiting for someone brave or lucky or simply curious enough to answer.